I think it'd be good to talk about how people should approach the channel.
Okay, yeah.
Like now and going into 2026, obviously not too far away. How should people be thinking about LinkedIn as part of their wider marketing ecosystem? And how should they be approaching the channel to get the most from it?
Yes.
One of the biggest problems that I see on LinkedIn is that people approach the channel purely as a lead generation channel.
Yeah.
They see it as a bottom of the funnel demand capture channel. I'm just going to run ads to try and get a demo, or I'm just going to run gated content to try and get leads and MQLs, when that's not what people are on the channel for.
Yeah.
People aren't on the channel to shop. They're not there to buy. They're often much earlier in their buyer journey. They're there to learn something new. They're there to network. They're there to kind of enjoy going through the feed. And I think we need to approach it in that mindset. You need to approach it in the mindset as, this channel for us is more about brand awareness and more about demand generation. And the way that we look to approach the channel for ourselves and all of our clients is that the main aim of this channel is to build up mental availability. And that's because in B2B marketing, it's really well known and understood, the 95-5 rule.
Yeah.
Where at any one time, only about 5% of your audience is in market looking to buy. The vast majority of your audience aren't in market looking to buy. So our job as marketers and on LinkedIn is to build up mental availability with that 95%. And that essentially means that when they're in market for a solution like yours, they think of you first.
Yeah.
And in B2B, what tends to happen is the brand that they think of first tends to be, I think it's about 80% of the time, the brand that they end up purchasing.
Yeah.
So it's really important. And I think we need to approach our ads and approach the channel in that way. Is this isn't a lead generation channel. It's not like Google Ads where we're going to get a lot of last touch attribution. It's the best channel we have to build up this mental availability, to hit people early in their buyer journey and to build up trust, so that when they are in market for a solution like ours, which might not happen often, they think of us first. They already know, like, and trust us. And ultimately then hopefully we end up winning the work.
Yeah. It's a really interesting shift. I mean, we've been on this journey for years. It's certainly how we think about marketing for our own business. I mean, that's the object of this show and this podcast, right? Is building up mental availability. I think that so much of the conversation is fascinating, because so much of the conversation around marketing that you see on LinkedIn is people telling this story. Some people call it brand building. Some people call it demand generation. But there seems to be this consensus, which is, as you put it, it's all about mental availability, and it's about making it into the consideration set. And if you only market to people who are currently in market, you're actually turning up too late, because chances are they've probably already decided who they want to buy from before they enter the buying cycle. And yet, right, despite everyone on LinkedIn always saying this, so many times when you actually speak to marketers about their goals and like why they're using LinkedIn or why they're looking for an agency, it comes back to lead gen. And it comes from all kinds of different places. I think it comes from senior pressure.
Yeah.
People just get handed down targets, like MQL targets, so they have to try and hit them at least. I think there's a kind of sunk cost fallacy, which is where we've been trying to do lead gen using the classic lead gen playbook for this long. We should continue, because to do something else would be to accept that a lot of that budget has been wasted. I think it's also just like, for a long time, most marketers got their marketing education from vendors, from HubSpot and the like, who said, this is how marketing works. You know, you make a nice ebook and you stick it on a landing page and someone downloads it, you send them 3 emails and they buy your product. Easy peasy. And people genuinely never questioned whether or not these brands were like credible in that advice. When you actually look at decades and decades of research into marketing and what's effective and what's not. And, you know, LinkedIn have contributed to this themselves with the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, the B2B Institute, which partners with them, and like really credible marketers like Byron Sharp and people like that. There's a brilliant white paper actually that LinkedIn, I never thought I'd use those two words together, but called How B2B Brands Grow, which is like the B2B version of the kind of the book How Brands Grow by Byron Sharp, which is basically, you know, all the stuff that you've just been talking about. And I think like every marketer that's interested in trying to shift from a lead gen to a demand gen or a more brand centric way of thinking about using LinkedIn should read it, because it's really, really good. And it really explains how and why this works. I think The bit that's often missing, and I posted about this literally last week, is we all get the theory, at least most of us do. Not that many people talk about the practice. How do you target the 95% who are out of market? And what does that actually look like in terms of a strategy, right? Like a set of tactics, a content calendar. I've got a few thoughts on that, but maybe you want to go first in terms of like from a paid media perspective, how you go about building those sorts of campaigns with those sorts of goals.
Yeah, I think a lot of it we touched upon already.
Yeah.
And it's about showing up to be genuinely useful to that audience in the content you produce. And that can be free thought leader ads, like we spoke a lot about. That is then sharing your expertise and your knowledge and helping people and building up that credibility then and that authority in your business. And I think that then the video content you can create, if that can carry on that in terms of building up who you are as a credible authority. And I think for me, that is the key, is content that helps to build that trust.
Yeah.
Because every purchase in B2B is complex and is often high risk and can be massive budget sometimes, that trust is crucial. So that's what I'll be thinking about with with building, with how you're advertising to that 95%, is you want to have messages that are memorable. So you want to have a clear narrative, know who your ICP is, these kind of best practices when it comes to marketing, not just marketing on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And you want to repeat that message over and over so they get it. But also you want to showcase your expertise. You want to be genuinely helpful so that they trust you.
Yeah.
And then when they're in market, it should be a no-brainer to come and talk to you first.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that at the outset, it's really useful to set some guiding principles in terms of the strategy, and the simplest way to boil it down, I think a good starting point is, first off, this is zero click in the newsfeed education. So we're not going to be asking people to fill out a form. We're not going to be asking people to click on a link. Whatever engagement happens on whatever we make is happening in the feed, because that forces you to think in a totally different way, which is you're not thinking about website traffic, you're not thinking about form fills, you're just thinking about creating something which is going to work really well in the feed. The next thing, I think you're totally right. If you want somebody to remember something, you need to make that thing really simple. So have a really clear story and tell it in a bunch of different ways over and over and over again. And like, if you are sick to death of saying something or covering something, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think in this play, because it is all about memorability. There's this mindset shift, which I used to talk about quite a lot, which I think is really interesting. Like, great marketers don't think as much about attention. They think about like memory, because memory is the thing that guides buying behavior. If a piece of software costs 80, 100, 200 grand a year, you're not going to do that off the back of, a post that they saw once and decided to click on and go and book a demo.
Yeah.
That's just not how that works. It's like long-term brand impact is what shapes those kind of big buying decisions. And that thing is all about memory. And it's really not that much about attention after just getting their attention with your message. But it's about like, what are the memory structures you're building? A few of the ways you can do that is familiarity. So repeating the same message, but using the same brand assets and using the same faces. So a big part of why I think it's really good that we do this kind of stuff for Winbox is that, it sounds odd, we are distinctive brand assets. To use like the kind of classic marketing jargon from the B2C side of things, which is my background. Your people become distinctive brand assets. They become like sub-brands. Or, if you were to map out all of the brand assets on a page, you'd have your logo, your fonts, your color palettes, your brand visuals, and your people, right? And those people are part of what makes it stick. And then, I think in terms of more tactically, if you were trying to target the 95%, definitely for me, it's more of a thought leader play. Like, that's what's building the awareness. And then your kind of brand account is ultimately like retargeting the people that engage and maybe trying, because it's still worth having those conversion campaigns running. They're just not the object of the entire campaign. Yeah. And the brand account is there to kind of, I don't think you'd run like a retargeting campaign to people who are engaging from a thought leader profile. At least I don't really see that very often. It's more of a top of funnel thing, isn't it? Yeah,
more so. I mean, there can be a mix of maybe they've engaged with your thought leader ads, but then also your brand ads as well, or some other signals of intent. I think that going back to why a lot of brands aren't doing this, because I think to do this well, it is a mindset shift.
Yes.
It's a mindset shift from, okay, this isn't lead generation, this is brand awareness. That's how we're going to approach it. So that's the sort of content we're going to create. I think a lot of times why marketers aren't doing this isn't actually their fault. I'm on the marketer side here, as I would be. Yeah. It's they have a lot of pressure for short-term targets from usually their senior executives and the C-suite, which makes it very difficult for them. The conversations we have with them, they say, we kind of know we need to be doing this stuff for long-term success, but I can't.
Yeah.
I have a target next month for leads or for MQLs. I need to hit that. So I think to help us to get over that, I think marketers need to have those difficult conversations with the C-suite up front.
Yeah.
With, we're looking to invest in this channel, but here is what it's going to do for us. It's not going to immediately drive pipeline, and that's not its main driver. What it's going to do is it's going to help us reach our target audience consistently with our message to build up brand mental availability and to build up brand awareness so that they will come to us when they're in market.
Yeah.
And what that means in the long term is we will have outsized progress with what marketing is bringing into the organization in terms of opportunities and in terms of pipeline because of this brand activity that we're doing. And I think if you can have that conversation up front with the CFO, with the CEO, and you get them bought in, then that alleviates then that pressure to default to short-term tactics.
Yeah.
You do want some short-term tactics in there to capture the demand that already exists, but the majority of your strategy you want to be building up that mental availability and to be on the awareness side.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I feel for a lot of our clients who are trying to have these conversations internally, because I think that B2B marketing did just get stuck with this playbook a few years ago that I think we're still trying to shake off. I think marketers are doing a better job of doing that. I think one thing that really helps, we have our own measurement framework internally, which is kind of reach, relevance, and engagement equals pipeline. Maybe we can talk about that in more detail in another show. But yeah, having a alternative that feels really watertight and methodical and thought through, because what it shouldn't be, the worst version of this pivot from kind of lead gen to demand gen is just, we're not going to measure anything anymore. It's all brand, baby. Let's go. It's crazy. You got to measure something. You need to be like, make peace with what's really hard to measure, which is basically what's going on in people's brains. Be forensic about what it is possible to measure, and treat those things as kind of inferring in a fairly directional way whether things are going right or wrong.
Yeah, and we'll definitely do a whole episode on measurement.
Yeah.
Because that is the biggest question that we get asked, and also the biggest issue for a lot of marketers is, how do I justify this spend?
I think it's the biggest issue in the industry.
Yeah.
Like, if you were to say, like, in marketing, especially B2B marketing, what are the points of tension, the things that are unresolved? It would be measurement and attribution. It's fascinating, right? How often conversations in our office just turn into a conversation about measurement and attribution.
Yeah.
No matter what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's so important.
It's so foundational.
Yeah.
We were talking about a set of slides that we wrote for a pitch that's coming up and end up having a half-hour long conversation about measurement. It's always in the background. And I think that's because it's probably one of the few areas of marketing where it's not been worked out. No one's squared it away.
Yeah. And I think, again, this is why it's important to have those conversations up front about what this channel is going to do. Because otherwise people will just default to last touch attribution.
Yes.
What their CRM can tell them. And we know that last touch can give you some interesting insight into what channel is then capturing that demand. But in B2B, the buying journey is much more than that, and is usually a long tail. I think it's an average like 290 days or something like that from first being exposed to your ad or being exposed to your brand to then going on and actually inquiring. So there's a huge journey there, and we can't discount that whole journey and just give credit to that last touch, because if we do, you'll be cutting off what's actually working for you.
Definitely.